Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Dead Malls, your one home for the coziest mall mini documentaries and everything existentialism related. In tonight's episode, I had actually already filmed at Towne West Square in Wichita, Kansas, around a year ago in the fall of 2023. But after numerous power outages in the mall over 2024, and word that the remaining tenants had basically closed up or walled off their mall entrances, I just had to go back down one last time to film it again and see just what was up at Towne West Square. So before I spoil any of the whirlwind that is tonight's neon-filled mall, I want to take a moment and shout out our winner, who was able to successfully guess the next mall. Very nice job, Poodle Lover. If you would like to have your chance of being shouted out in the next episode, be sure to stick around for the next challenge. Anyways, let's dive in here, do a drive around the outside, then attempt to head in before being foiled by security, which is actually where our story begins. Now this little Hyundai Santa Fe is actually where our story begins, because before I could even get into this mall, I was already being stalked by this security guard, who presumably saw me filming from my window, and he did not take kindly to that. Now I wish I would have filmed more of this encounter because it was so entertaining and funny, to me at least, but basically, as I walked into the mall, he burst through the doors, asked me what I was doing, and then proceeded to kick me out, saying if he saw me back in the mall, that he would have me trespassed. Dang, what a first impression. No wonder nobody comes here. Before I laid my eyes on his laughable enforcement vehicle, I believed he was a real cop. He had the full black garbs, vest and all, equipment out the wazoo, and then when I saw his ride, it all came together. So instead of leaving, I just drove around the mall's parking lot, getting shots of the outside. Now when he first kicked me out, this smug little cop wannabe had the biggest grin on his face, waving to me as I left like some sort of Disney villain. Probably the only meaningful thing he did that day. But as I drove around, he began to chase me, honk at me, and even film me. So here's that. Crazy security guard. Kohan, you need to give this guy a raise. He's doing a great job. Look at him. This guy is insane. After ending this video, I then drove around some more, and he obviously chased me, before I then pulled into the parking lot of the nearby PetSmart, at which point this power-tripping loser, out of his element, whips his Santa Fe in behind me, rolls his window down, and shouts at me in the shakiest voice I've ever heard in my life that he's calling the cops. At which point I responded, oh really, for what, driving around? Before then leaving, because by that point the sun was setting and I had had my fun. And it really didn't matter that he had kicked me out and probably put me on Kohan's Most Wanted, because I was going back the next morning, and by then Officer Blard was nowhere to be found. It was warned by many of Kohan's nasty security, which at this mall will kick anyone out at even the sight of a camera, and so far that was proven true. So me praying Officer Blard didn't have back-to-back shifts came bright and early, and thankfully this time there wasn't a security guard to be found, just a few mall walkers and a catacomb of forgotten 90s vaporwave. This old directory from the Simon days of the mall's ownership is terribly depressing, as it appears not even management could keep up with taping off the closing stores. Champs, Annie Ann's, Bath & Body, Hellsberg's, and even Spencer Gifts are all gone. And as we explore the mall tonight, you too can see for yourself the dire straits Towne West finds itself in. The mall's story begins in the spring of 1976, in a heavily suburbanizing Wichita, Kansas, where mall developer Melvin Simon himself proposes to a skeptical city council his third mall in the city, a sister to the already established Town East, directionally named for the west side, to be anchored by Sears and Macy's, who were already signed on. According to Simon, Towne West Square would officially be born, though both of these names would pull out of the project later on. The site of the mall would be chosen a year later in '77, at the northeast corner of the Kellogg Avenue Freeway and I-235 interchange. Not a terrible location in theory, forcing travelers to look at the mall as they exited off the freeways, but not the best either, as the mall itself was only accessible through smaller arterial roads like West Maple Street, and at that largely blocked off by a giant church school. Construction, regardless of these factors, would begin without a hitch in the summer of 1978, with the first concrete foundations being poured that December. These old tube monitors and CRTs were at one point part of an art project called TV Mountain, which saw the old TVs stacked upon each other and synced up to form a jumbotron effect. I actually got to see this in working order during our older fall footage from the mall, and it's pretty trippy to say the least. And there's a link in the description if you want to go check out the art project's website for yourself. I recommend doing it, it's pretty interesting. Also, I don't know what this was, some sort of glitch in the Matrix maybe, but you'll see these little light anomalies around the mall. Sometimes not even I notice them, so keep your eye out. Maybe they're from the skylights, I don't know. Very strange though. Isn't working today. I hope that's the case. Construction was a breeze for the Wichita-based log company, who sculpted the mall's massive L-shaped layout to fit snugly along the freeway. Through 1979 and 80, steel girders rose, and the superstructure of the mall soon took shape among the land. Opening of Towne West Square was slated for the spring of '81, and all residents of Western Cowtown could do until then was wait for the glimmering grand opening. Of course, we gotta talk about the food court here at Towne West. Now, this footage you're seeing of the neon still turned on is from August of 2023, during our first ever visit. Unfortunately, as you'll see when we jump back to present time, the neons were left off, and the food court just lost so much of its aura. I don't know if that's a permanent change or if it was just the morning I went, so let me know down below. Have the neons permanently been shelved? Regardless, I'll let you enjoy them here before we move on. On Friday, March 6th, 1981, at 10 a.m., the new Towne West Square would officially open its doors to the public, with senior anchors Montgomery Ward's, Dillard's, and JCPenney, as well as two junior anchors, being Wilson's Catalog Showroom and Henry's Clothiers. Upon opening, the mall actually didn't look like it does today. Originally, it was plastered with planters, trees, sunken conversation pits, and brown earthy tones in the tile flooring. In the mall's center court lie the Grand Fountain, which bore a striking resemblance to another iconic mall fountain, which has as of modern day been reduced to this laughable patch of carpet. The mall also did not have the dedicated food court upon opening, but instead featured a 5-screen theaters operated by General Cinemas. In its early years, Towne West instead bore a striking resemblance to another Simon Mall of the time, the now demolished Northtown Mall in Toledo, Ohio. Upon opening day, Towne West included 35 stores within its layout, some of those being the Athlete's Foot, Camelot Music, Card America, Spencer's Gifts, Chess King, Chick-fil-A, Claire's, Ellsberg's, The Shirt Shack, Swiss Colony, Toys by Roy, Zales, and The Tinderbox, among others. More stores would come in time, soon filling the one-story mall out to a mind-boggling 118 stores. Towne West was instantly a hit, drawing shoppers not only from Wichita, but all over rural Kansas. Its massive lineup of brand stores, restaurants, and services made it a go-to destination early on, and soon even the outparcels at the mall's parking lots would begin to fill up, with a new Bishop's Buffet being constructed out front of the Kmart, and even a Toys R Us taking shape nearby. Needless to say, TW was a hit in its early years, though in time, the mall's more upscale anchor names would begin to change hands. The first change of hands came in 1985, with Service Merchandise taking the spot of a struggling Wilson's. A few years later, in '88, Henry's, citing competition with Dillard's, would close their upscale store. The hallway to the Henry's would have been exactly what you're looking at here, as after their closure, the mall portion would be gutted and turned into an express, which has apparently been used as a spirit Halloween in recent times. The Henry's building itself would become an office max in the 90s before closing in the early 2000s, and being split up into two different nightclubs over the years, with one of them, 54 West, still open all these years later. I'm gonna throw in just a few clips of the 2023 footage here, so you can see for yourself how much darker, emptier, and sadder Towne West feels without even some of these mom and pop shops. And I'm really surprised that, as of the modern day, we still have V-Stock and Hot Topic. But as you'll see, unfortunately, with time, we've lost even some of these last iconic neon-lit names. In 1993, Sears Roebuck would open as the mall's final anchor store, completing the modern layout and dedicating their new store on the North Pad just in time for Simon's complete revisioning of the mall. In 1994, Simon would completely renovate Towne West, stripping the OG earthy looks, trees, planters, and even the original fountain, sadly, replacing the fountain with a smaller square one, and the rest of the mall with the looks you see today. The very vapor-wavy 90s pastel look, kind of reminiscent of the Greens Point Mall in Houston, Texas, which I also have a video on if you're interested. One of the biggest changes, albeit this was more of an addition though, came in the form of the mall's new food court, which featured 8 bays of new neon-lit restaurants and a dining area, all underneath 5 iconic neon-lit skylights. Going forth with these looks, especially the amazing neon in the food court, you'd think the mall would flourish for years to come. Though, even with these renovations, the problems of modern day began to plague the square. Sometimes I'll get comments from people who will say things like, I was just at the mall in the off hours, and that's why it's never busy when I go, or that's why the stores are closed. And sure, well, sometimes that may happen. Other times, you come to malls which are just truly on their last legs. You only have like 3 or 4 stores left. It just doesn't matter what time you come here at Towne West. The mall is gonna have this barren, liminal, super surreal emptiness to it all day long. By the late 90s, Towne West was going into a strange new age, where the way of the internet and online shopping was just beginning to make itself known, and standalone big box stores began to dominate just down the freeway. By this point, the mall's less traveled older names would begin to shutter, leaving portions of the mall with stretches of empty tenants. In the late 90s, Service Merchandise would close, and by March of 2001, Montgomery Ward, in bankruptcy, would close their doors as the first major anchor closure. The space would be taken over by a Dillard's who'd split their now 2 stores between men's and women's, and Dick's Sporting Goods would open in the former Service Merchandise in the early 2000s. But all of these store closures slowly wore on the mall, in time killing off more of its big names.
This mall feels like it's in a coma. Everything's like wrapped up and sterilized, empty. It's creepy.
It's the one measly mall plant in the middle of the carpet patch that really does it for me here. The perfect centerpiece for underneath the skylight. They really couldn't have chosen anything better. Great job. On December 18th, 2002, the 5-screen, which had been juggled around by a few other owners over the years, would land in the hands of Bill Warren, who would remodel and reopen the theaters as the colorful, neon-lit movie machine, a theater which I'm sure brings back plenty of nostalgia to locals. In the beginning of 2014, Towne West would be spun off by Simon to a company called the Real Estate Investments Trust, a company which was tasked with paying back massive loans Simon had not paid on the mall. With this, rent would inevitably hike up, and store closures would only further be exacerbated. Sears, after years of slipping sales at their northerly acre, would close for good in December of 2014, with the space being converted to offices shortly after. Dillard's, tired of operating 2 stores, would close their women's division in favor of the old Montgomery Ward building, leaving the giant old Dillard's building in the crux of the mall's L-shaped layout dead and vacant, which it remains to this day, and the men's store would be turned into a Dillard's clearance center. Not a good sign. If all of these factors weren't already hampering the now dying Towne West Mall, the Dillard's closure brought upon the mall's real death spiral, as its 2 connection points were both at important confluences in the layout, and without that foot traffic, major portions of Towne West died overnight. You just don't see food courts with beautiful neons like this anymore. Sadly, we live in a world that is sterilizing itself in every single way and focusing more on profits and efficiency and green arrows rather than charming and inspiring others. So many of those wonderful places that made our childhood special, the neons, life, and the color, are all ripped out and sterilized. We can only hope, though, that more current architects wake up and pull us out of this drab, monotone, profit-driven lie we currently live in, and instead bring our everyday architecture back into an age of gathering and community. But for now at least, we'll see how long it hangs on. Towne West is still open, and you can still find yourself dazzled by that food court and those breathtaking neons, if they're still turned on. In July of 2019, the real beginning of the end would occur when Kohan bought the mall from a failing Washington Prime Group for just $14 million. Kohan would, of course, douse the mall in their iconic special treatment of neglect and misery, letting leases slip, refusing to keep up with the structure, and in time beginning a notorious cycle of not paying the bills. Before that, though, in March of 2020, Regal would close the movie machine. The theater would be taken over by local ownership in May of 2022, being refurbished and renamed to the Boulevard Theaters, which it operates under to this day. On June 20th, 2023, the power would suddenly go out, as Kohan had failed to pay even the most basic bills on the property. This exact same problem would occur 3 more times around the beginning of the latter months of the year, and persist into 2024. And that really brings us to where we are today. As of this November 2024 footage, almost every last tenant has closed due to the neglect, and even the anchors, which once opened into the mall, have since sealed their entrances off. And it really just surprises me how the city hasn't yet stepped in to take the mall from Kohan. It's seriously a joke at this point, and I feel really bad for the people who are still trying to have livelihoods here at the mall. Though that can't be many. The only recent change Kohan has made has been hiring new security guards, who absolutely hate people filming. Folks, I just want to take a moment to thank you for joining me for tonight's episode. As for what the future holds for Towne West, there currently are no plans. The mall remains in a ghostly state, and its future seems very uncertain. How long will Kohan hold on to this place? And how long will these now sealed off anchors continue to linger around? Your guess is as good as mine, so let me know down below in the comments. What do you think the future holds? Also, this episode is actually incredibly timely, as the power was just cut to the structure again a few days ago on November 20th, 2024, making that the 9th time it's happened this year. So if you're ever in the area and you want to see this amazing retro mall for yourself, be sure to stop by. You probably don't have much time. Just watch out for the security guards. If you guys enjoyed tonight's episode, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And if you'd like to support me further, consider checking out the Patreon for behind the scenes content and even more. Next week we'll be live at a mall of your choosing, but 2 weeks from now, on December 6th, we'll be back once again, finally in the Lone Star State, and exploring a massive 2-story mall with a giant rotunda as its center court. Guess which mall we'll be at, and I'll shout you out in the next episode. But until then, have yourselves a lovely evening, and peace out guys. See you later.